Hey, Ian Castleberry, hope you had a great weekend. That may be an understatement.
It was a good weekend over here, now that you mention it.
Yes, good times as always. And by the way, thanks to Mike Lawrence and the gang at Happy Hill for bringing us Ian today and our Major League Baseball update, feeding Asheville since 1967. All right, Ian, let's start first, if we can, with what was just an absolutely fabulous weekend. I want to remind you, you were not living in an alternative reality this weekend, though it may have seemed that way. Michigan wins the Big Ten championship. The Lions get their first win on the final play against the Vikings. You still on cloud nine?
Yeah, I got to say, though, about the Lions, I almost didn't enjoy that win, as improbable and euphoric as it was, because I was so mad at Dan Campbell for a fourth down call he made earlier, just minutes earlier, that almost cost them the game. I mean, they had a 2-point lead. They went for it on fourth down. I think they were inside their own 30 when Minnesota could win the game with a field goal, and he went for it. I usually like Dan Campbell's aggressiveness. This was just one situation where I thought it was an absurd call. I mean, even if you don't think you can stop, punt the ball, force Minnesota down the field, make them earn a game-winning field goal at least.
Wow. Are you over that, though?
Yeah, I was over that one.
Okay. Just checking.
I got over that when Amon-Ra St. Brown caught that touchdown pass. It is a great win for the Lions, their only win. Pardon me, I have not today. I told myself I was going to spend most of today reading Minnesota Vikings blogs and coverage to see how much they hated on Mike Zimmer for that prevent defense they played. We talked on We talked on Thursday about what has been wrong with Jared Goff, but Jared Goff did it on that last drive. I mean, that's what you typically measure quarterbacks by, especially in the NFL, right? Can they lead their team to a comeback win? And Jared Goff got it done. He looked good on that last drive.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I don't know if you're listening to Shoop earlier in the last hour, but he said he was really quite surprised that Minnesota's defense was playing as off the ball as they were in the end zone, especially Mike Zimmer, who, he has great respect for, one of the best defensive coordinators that Shoop ever had to prepare for back in his day. He was really surprised by that. And he said, Minnesota, that was a gimme. And Goff spotted it.
No pass rush.
Yeah. And Goff spotted it and made it happen. And so here we are. So I think the other question is, Ian, should the state of Michigan declare the first weekend in December a state holiday?
Yeah, it was a special weekend. I mean, I know we're having fun, we're kidding. I don't want to get too serious here, but I think it was also touching. I mean, we saw this with Michigan in the Big Ten title game. We saw this with the Lions yesterday, even the Vikings before the game. Paying tribute to the 4 victims of the high school shooting in Oxford. Dan Campbell led off his post-game press conference with that. Michigan wore a patch commemorating the victims on Saturday. The Lions did a lot for the family. The Tate Meyer family was invited to the Big Ten championship game. So, I mean, not to, obviously what's going on in the real world is extremely serious, but, for 3 hours, for 6 hours, to give a little bit of escape to those families, hopefully, and the victims. Obviously, they have to go on living their lives with this incredible tragedy. But for a little bit of escape for a few hours and a community pulling together, and that is supposed to be what sports is at its best.
I was watching with Kathleen when he came on in the post-game presser, and it was really quite moving because, he was emotional. He's an emotional guy. To take that moment and honor the victims, it was moving. And I remember turning to Kathleen and saying, I'll still be with this guy if they lose 10 more games. And I'm saying that because they may lose 10 more games, but I'm going to be with Dan. I'm with Dan Campbell, man. That was just class personified.
I think he is a genuine guy. He showed it in that moment, as you pointed out. He might be a meathead as far as a football coach, but I think he's a genuine person. His players obviously play hard for him, are buying in. He may not be the best strategic coach. We saw a little bit of that at the end of the game yesterday. It's difficult to judge him as a coach because he just doesn't have a very good team. But I think he is a genuine personality.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And what a big win. Get that monkey off the back, at least for the time being. Congrats to Dan Campbell and Ian's Detroit Lions. Ian Castleberry joins the Wise Guys on the D.C. Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines. Thanks to Mike Lawrence and the staff at Happy Hill Restaurant for sponsoring Ian today. Hey, Ian, now we get to some baseball after stomping off to their respective sandboxes after talks broke down early. Do the owners and players have any meetings scheduled soon?
Nothing is scheduled. There don't appear to be any talks. I think right now we're at the point where players and team owners are sniping at each other in the media, trying to win the PR battle. Major League Baseball, as I've said before, no sport is better at shooting itself in the foot and hurting itself when it comes to drawing attention to the sport and highlighting its stars. I don't know if you've seen this, if the listeners have seen this, but as soon as the lockout went into effect, Major League Baseball wiped all of the player information and stories about players from MLB.com. And, they spun it as, well, right now we're going to emphasize and celebrate the history of the game. This is an off time for baseball. So this lockout hasn't affected spring training. It hasn't affected games yet. A lot of the free agent signings were done before this lockout. But to go and just spitefully wipe information on the players away from Major League Baseball from MLB.com is just such a vindictive move and counter to the promotion of the sport. Only Major League Baseball would do this.
You know what? That I didn't know about that. That is a load of crap. And, if they're looking for sympathy or support from Major League Baseball fans, any baseball fan I think who hears that is going to be like, really? That is not a good look. I'll leave it at that. Man, that's petty and vindictive, and it makes me root for the players.
Honestly, what the f*** are we doing here?
Gil Hodges and Buck ONeil, I've always felt have a special place in this game that deserves to be in Cooperstown, despite maybe not having the numbers to be there.
Yeah, this might be the most positive news baseball has for its fans over the next 2 months while we're talking about millionaires and billionaires arguing over how to split the money, the billions of dollars that are coming into the sport. But Buck ONeil, we talked about this a little bit on Thursday, just a tremendous ambassador for the game, a great representation of the history of the sport. Some of it not great history when you're talking about Negro Leagues and black players not being allowed to play in the major leagues. But Buck ONeil is a two-time All-Star in the Negro Leagues, the first black coach in the National or American Leagues. He played 10 years in the Negro Leagues. He won championships as a player and manager with the Kansas City Monarchs. If you watch Ken Burns' baseball documentary, I think anybody who watched that documentary fell in love with Buck ONeil as a narrator and a commentator in that documentary. There's a tremendous book called The Soul of Baseball that he wrote with Joe Posnanski about his life in baseball. This is somebody who should be in the Hall of Fame. Some people might go and look up Buck ONeil's stats and say, wait a minute, why is he in the Hall of Fame? 258 average, 9 home runs. But one key thing to remember is that the numbers, the statistics from the Negro Leagues are still being collected. I mean, a lot of this has been lost to history, unfortunately. And there is a great effort by the Hall of Fame, by sites like Baseball Reference, trying to find those numbers and restore the Negro Leagues as a historical chronicle.
Yeah, it's funny, Buck ONeil, and you're right. I mean, my first taste of Buck ONeil was Ken Burns' series, the baseball series, and I literally just fell in love with his enthusiasm, a guy that could still smile after all the crap that was done with him and to him and to African Americans during that time. I mean, people don't want to put on masks today. Wow, what an inconvenience. Hey, how about not being able to go to the same bathroom as fellow Americans? I mean, that's what they were dealing with back then. And yet Buck ONeil managed to get through it all. Not to say he wasn't impacted, but he always looked ahead to the positive. I love that about him. And I knew Buck ONeil before the baseball series. I just never heard him speak. But I was well aware of him, and he was one of the better Negro League players back in the day. So I'm thrilled to see him get in. I'm extremely disappointed that he did not get in while he could live to see it. But nonetheless, He is there. And, of course, Minnie Minoso, didn't he play till he was like 60?
He did. Minnie Minoso is a little bit gimmicky here in his career because he was brought back in his 50s, so he could be the only guy who played in 5 different decades in Major League Baseball. He played in the 40s, played in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and he played one game in the 80s, largely with the Indians and the Chicago White Sox. Played a little bit with the Cardinals. He began his career in the Negro Leagues as well with the New York Cubans, but was able to play in Major League Baseball. 299 career average, 2,000 hits, a 9-time All-Star. Really, maybe he's not among the all-time greats if, you're talking about somebody, like Babe Ruth and Joe DiMaggio and stuff. But he very much is a part of the history of the game. One of baseball's most celebrated players, I think. He does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. So it was good. There is a distinction there. There were 2 players that were inducted by the early baseball era committee who were Buck O'Neil and Bud Fowler, who's believed to be the first black player to play professional baseball. And then this Golden Era committee, they did induct Minnie Minoso, as we just talked about, Gil Hodges, who you mentioned, Tony Oliva, and Jim Cott.
Man, some great names, some great players, no doubt about that. And Gil Hodges, former Brooklyn Dodger, and of course beloved with New York fans, and of course played with them. I think he coached or managed the Mets, didn't he, with their 1969?
He managed the 1969 Mets to the World Series
Miracle
title.
Mets.
Miracle Mets, yeah. Played largely for the Dodgers and the Mets. 370 home runs, nearly 2,000 hits. Yeah, a legendary figure among New York baseball fans. Tony Oliva, 3-time batting champ, 2 World Series titles with the Minnesota Twins, 304 career average, 2 MVP runner-ups. He was AL Rookie of the Year. And then Jim Cott, who most listeners might remember more as one of the best baseball analysts who's been working throughout the 80s and the 90s, but 283 career wins. He was a 3-time 20-game winner, won a World Series title with the Twins, 16-time Gold Glove winner, which, maybe pitchers don't get enough credit for their defense, but Jim Cott certainly did. Also a 3-time All-Star, so a very deserving. These committees rewarding players who have been overlooked over the years by the voting, I think it is a good part of the process that we take a second look, maybe even longer look, and especially with the advent of statistics, I think we can put their numbers, their performance into a little bit different perspective than simply saying, was he a Hall of Famer? Did he hit 500 home runs? Did he win 300 games? And looking at it a little more nuanced than that.
Got it, man. Great stuff as always. That's Ian Castleberry, writes for thecomeback.com, awfulannouncing.com, like both on Facebook. A talented guy.
Okay, looking for it. And to the Georgia fans, Stan Pamphilus, Michigan's coming.
Yeah, I may get both you boys on the Thursday before that matchup.
All right, and not to get cocky, but let's make a reservation with Chris Womack as well.
Oh yeah, he says you boys been having a back and forth on social media, so that's good. I'm glad you boys are connecting. It's going to be a good one, man. I can't wait.
Okay, take care. Talk to you then, Pat.
You got it. Be well, Ian. It's Ian Castleberry with the Wise Guys. And, of course, Ian's appearance, Talking Baseball, presented by Happy Hill Restaurant.